I think we can wait maybe, I don't know, a couple of minutes, or we can get started. I don't know who else is gonna join from the DAO as well. But yeah.
Yeah, on our end, make it because he's some families, but I'll be kind of like representing.
Yeah, no problem. I'm just gonna share my screen. So there's a draft. Yep, that should be it. Okay, good.
Yeah, it's working.
Yeah, so Sinkas, I was just very curious about what do you guys think generally of this proposal. I read Chris' feedback on it, and I think that on this draft we do capture a lot of what he was mentioning, but I don't know if you had the opportunity to go through it. If not, we can just go through it right now.
Yeah, so we did go through it. We just didn't have the time to we were reviewing and discussing internally and putting together a response for that. But we were gonna post it today, but we figured since it's the call, we could just do it kind of verbally, and then from the call, if we have any additional feedback, just put it on the proposal. But sure, if you want to give a brief overview, and then I can also give a brief overview of our feedback so far, and discuss some of the things that we've been discussing internally with Christoph as well.
Yeah. Okay. Perfect. Yeah, I'll just go through it real quick. So basically, we have split our proposal in two separate options, but the end goal is the same one. Basically, having an incentive system for the DAO and for the delegates in Arbitrum. This system, it has to be seen as something experimental. We're trying to keep it simple, so it's just going to last for. We're just planning to have it for 6 months, and the total number of delegates that would benefit from this would be roughly 30. So it's not like the number, it's not going to be fixed 30, but you'll see later on. But yeah, only 30 delegates are going to get are going to receive a compensation every now and then. For funding, it's going to be roughly 1 million at a valuation of $1 million. We received some comments about this of just not using USD as kind of the. So we received some feedback about that. We should just do valuation in tokens instead of USD because it can be a bit messy, which I understand, and I'm also open to that. We just had this idea of using USD for compensation so that there would be more predictability for the delegates, so they could see this as a constant wage, so they know how much they're going to earn each month in dollars. But we're also open to just do it in ARB and have a buffer in case the price fluctuates or drops, so we can just give more ARB tokens to delegates. Very open in that sense. More to the actual delegates selection process. We have a 3-tiered structure with different brackets. From 30 million ARB to 1 million ARB would be the first tier. In that tier, we get 10 delegates. We have the specific budget of 360,000 ARB, $360,000, and we would expect them to lock a certain amount of ARB. That lock is more symbolic. Since we also want to keep it simple, we wouldn't want to make it too complicated. We're just gonna ask them to keep those ARB tokens on their wallet, and then just the facilitator would just be supervising that. Again, we could have a contract, a smart contract for that, but I don't know if it's necessary to make it more complex. Then the same case for tier 2, just a lower bound. Then the same amount of delegates would receive incentives. Again, a lower amount of USD would be required, and obviously less ARB locked. And then same for tier 3. So the idea is to have at least. So the idea is to not only give a compensation to delegates, but also allow delegates in different brackets to compete with each other for this different compensations. So that's why we opted for this 3-tiered structure. So yeah, in total it's going to be 30 delegates, but this number, the ones that are getting compensated, might vary depending on their score at the end of each month. So then, it's important to note that since again we want to keep it simple, it's going to depend on each delegate to keep track of their record and be accountable about it. And they're going to have to post on the forum about it if they want to participate in the program. So this way we also, because there might be delegates that are not interested in participating in the incentive program. So just in order to have that sorted out, delegates would have to come to the forum to make their own thread, like their own application with a template we're going to provide. And that would be pretty much it on that end. Then there's a scoring framework. I don't know if you have any questions on that end or any other delegates have any questions on that end. But it's kind of straightforward. It seems like a lot, but it's just like the specific criteria we chose with specific weights, which could be they're kind of arbitrary. We just proposed this, but we're also open to modifying these weights or having other different criteria we could use or parameters for the pointing system, the point system we have. But yeah, I don't know if anybody has any questions on that end. If not, we can just go forwards. And obviously for the tier 1, we're taking into consideration submitting proposals to Snapshot and Tally. But for other tiers, like for example for tier 2, we do include Snapshot, but not Tally because of their voting power. They can't. And then for tier 3, just like pretty much the same. And what else? What else might have to be clarified? Yeah. So again, like on the tokens, on like the compensation, there would not be a token swap. We would just give compensation based on current valuation. But we're also open to just like do it in ARB tokens. And then I think like something we haven't like we're also very open to discuss is how we're gonna determine who like the facilitator, like or who the administrator is of this grant program. Again, ideally, it could be someone from the foundation, such as like the facilitator we currently have, or we're also open to be ourselves if we don't like, and by ourselves we mean Citatam, if we don't get anybody to do so. But again, we're also open to explore other alternatives. Obviously, if Silatam is organizing this, our delegation would not participate in the incentive program for obvious issues that might arise with that. And then, option 2, that would be with the assistance of Karma. They would facilitate the whole process a lot. So instead of delegates having to keep track of their own let's say of their own scores, like of their own participation on all of that, we could automate a lot of that part, having a Karma dashboard, which would be very, very neat in my opinion. But we wanted to just like have it as a separate option, just in case maybe someone on the DAO does not agree with us, or just like to see other alternatives. But yeah, it's basically that, I think. On a high level, I don't know if anybody has any questions or anything else that I might have skipped that would like to go back on.
I have a question regarding one of the requirements for the delegates. In the proposal, you mentioned a token lock requirement for different amount for each tier, and I'd like to understand the purpose of it a little bit more. Like why did you introduce that mechanic?
Yeah, I think on one end, it was mainly as a way to ensure like some sort of skin in the game for like those delegates that are participating in the program, and also just like kind of like prevent sibling. Again, I don't know if it's necessary. We just included it. It's gonna be very voluntary. So again, also open to just like not have it. But that was kind of the rationale. It might not be necessary for this program because I think like the incentive to civil this isn't there because of the amount they would earn compared to like the economic power they would need to civil it. So it might not be necessary. But yeah, that was kind of like the rationale.
Yeah, like I thought as much. Like it's kind of like to have skin in the game, but if it were like, let's say you wanted to incentivize unwanted behaviors, then the amount should be greater. Like right now, even for like the highest year, it's half, about half of like 1 month's compensation. So let's say I put a token lock, I got a 1 month compensation, and then the second month, I didn't want to be confined within the parameters and the expected behavior. I don't care if I lose half of like the stake tokens because it's just half of what I've earned in the past month. So like to me, it should be either way higher, but then we do have like a plutocracy approach where people who do not have the amount of stake would be not be included. So I think like the better approach for that, specifically for that purpose, is just to get rid of it altogether, like unlock requirement. Which also introduces the concept of like if we lock tokens, we might like I'm not sure if they can be locked and at the same time be in the votable supply, and we don't want to introduce like to small to lower the votable supply, basically the voting power for everyone because they have to lock tokens.
Fair enough.
So that's one consideration. But yeah, I have a lot of feedback as we've given it a lot of thought with Chris. We've discussed fairly quite a bit about it just today, but I want to open the floor to anyone else who has feedback and questions first. I don't want to kind of like monopolize the discussion here.
Yeah, thank you.
So if anybody has things, go ahead, and if not, I'll be happy to provide for feedback.
Yeah, I don't know. Is Mahesh from Karma still here? Maybe he wants to add something that I might have. Yeah, I think you're there. I don't know if you want to add something that I might have left out.
Yeah, thanks, Kevin. So, hi, I'm Mahesh from Karma. I think Kevin gave a pretty good overview of like where Karma would play a role. Essentially, what we would do is operationalize and provide visibility to the community on like what is happening, right from the time when the delegate chooses to opt in. Through Karma's delegate dashboard, anyone can see who all have opted in to receive compensation. They can see their statement, and then they can see all their monthly stats of how much voting power they have on a month-to-month basis. What is their voting participation? Have they been posting reasons on the forum? All of those stats will be aggregated on a monthly basis, and we will have like a dedicated page. We will display all of that information along with how much compensation did they receive on a monthly basis. So everything which is like described here will be automated through our platform. All the scoring calculation, which the delegates don't have to do it, we will do all of that calculation. Anyone can audit it and look at it. So essentially, everything will be automated. It also, I feel like it that way, each person doesn't have to do all that work, and also the community gets a clear visibility into what is happening on a month-to-month basis. And then you can always tweak and adjust. And once the data is all right in front of you, aggregated in one place, it helps to iterate on it and improve.
Yeah, awesome. Thank you very much. Yeah, I think
got a quick question for Murthy. Does the data that Karma aggregate, I assume it's just quantitative, right? So it's just the number of responses or comments or votes, right? It's not the quality or like, let's say the length of a response. It's just the amount of responses one has. Is that right?
Not just amount of responses. We also look at for each proposal, did they post a reason? So we can look at that, but it'll still be a count. It's not qualitative because quality is really like subjective. Like we could write an algorithm to say, okay, this is of this quality, but half of the people will agree and half of won't agree. If the community can agree on like what defines the quality, then we can codify that. Otherwise, quality is kind of becomes tricky.
Yeah, that's my thought as well. Like, good luck figuring out how to measure qualitative. The quality of response. That's why it's so difficult. when talking about incentives in general. Karen, regarding the proposal itself. So basically, me and Christoph, we have feedback on the proposal itself, like the proposal you have submitted. And then we had like a discussion, an extensive one of that, regarding like the general approach. So not just the like your proposal, but like generally the approach for incentives. So for your proposal, what you submitted, firstly, like thanks so much for the work. I know it's a lot of work both for the RFC and then following up on that, discussing, iterating, building out the whole version. So first and foremost, we want to say like really appreciate the work you've been putting in into this proposal. The effort is not lost on us. So that's the one thing. Regarding the proposal, we do agree that 6 months for an experiment is a great time. It gives us a lot of time to get some data and measure basically the response that we have from delegates and the effects, like the effects that incentives have. So what we would suggest on that end is maybe like an evaluation period of halfway through, so about 3 months, do a quick eval, see if we want to continue the program or change anything halfway through. So that's kind of like something we could have it like almost like a milestone program.
Awesome.
Then regarding the token lock requirement, as I mentioned, I think it's just better off without it. Then we do agree that it should be kind of like opt-in, like the delegates should apply. And I wanted a clarification on that as well. Like with the application kind of like implies that there's going to be a vetting process. Is that the case, or just if you have like the criterion you apply, you're automatically in?
I'd say like if you qualify based on like the tiers you would be in, you would would instantly qualify, but at least but you would have to let us know through by filling in a template, just like to know that you're participating in it. Yeah.
All right. Yeah, that was my thought as well. And yeah, regarding like the scope of it, me and Christoph, we both felt that, of course, incentivizing participating in votes and responding and proposing your rationale is definitely something that we want to incentivize delegates to do. But we have two things, like two comments on that. One is that, like, if we were to incentivize just that, it's basically reactive actions, right? So a proposal comes up, we review it as delegates, and we vote for it, we respond with a rationale, and that's it. Like we react to something happening. But what about like the discussions that lead proposals to exist in the first place? And so let's say a community call takes place, we discuss the topic, and that discussion and brainstorming and ideation brings forward a proposal. That is work that we want delegates to do. And like the second point is about different delegates based on their weight, like the tiers, if you want to say them so. Basically, I think we want to incentivize different behaviors. And I don't want to like go into many particulars, but from a big delegate, let's say Treasure DAO, just because they're the biggest. And of course, not specific to Treasure DAO, but get the idea. We don't necessarily want Treasure DAO or whatever, like Treasure DAO, like any of the big delegates, to necessarily, we want them to vote and to like have a reason why they vote like that. So post the rationale in the forums and due diligence the votes, and because like the biggest delegates are basically the ones with like ultimately make the decision or sway the votes greatly in one or the other side. And I think it's important for big delegates, exactly because they have so much weight in their vote, to do due diligence and to have a solid rationale behind their votes and not just say, I voted because it looks good, right? So that's the one thing. But the smaller delegates, sorry to like, I'm finishing.
Sorry, go ahead.
The smaller delegates, like we want to incentivize more of action, right? Like for example, what T-Norm did with short-term incentive proposal. That's a great thing. Like I think that's kind of like the different scope, and that's how we see it. Like bigger delegates, we should incentivize more active and thorough due diligence and participation, voting, and rationale sharing. Whereas smaller delegates, you don't necessarily like. Of course, voting is something that we want to see them do. But ultimately, the biggest value contribution they could have is if they work on proposals, work on different things, and kind of like help the DAO move forward.
Yeah, that's actually a very fair point. Like, so basically saying, yeah, so from bigger delegates, we would expect like more accountability, and from smaller delegates, more proactivity. Like, we want to nudge those behaviors, and I agree with that. To be 100% honest, like what we tried with this proposal again is like to have like make it a bit simple. But I think that's definitely something we could nudge a bit. That's also why we included having the communication thread and giving that a weight, just like to ensure that to give value to, like, but by communication thread we interpret that, for example, that is how we do it. At least like every time we vote, we would just like write a communication thread about explaining our vote on the forum, and I think that's something that helps with accountability. But we can obviously expand this a bit more. Hey, Sarah, do you think you can mute your mic? Nice having you here. Yeah, sorry for that. But yeah, so I think that could help for bigger delegates in a way. But I'm also open to figuring out other parameters we could have, just like to nudge them into that behavior, into being more accountable on their votes and explaining why they behave in a certain way. And I do agree as well that we should look towards making smaller delegates more proactive and incentivizing that. But what would you say could be a parameter that we could use to incentivize that behavior?
So that's difficult to measure, and it goes to the problem of quality, right? And it's hard to, and it's objective, right? It's a subjective and not objective. And I think like there are two approaches here. At least that's what we've decided on. It's like we either like try to find the really perfect approach that has taken into account every possibility, which is basically, in my word, it means do nothing, right? Because we're never gonna do, like, the enemy of good is perfect, right? So we're never gonna have, like, I can imagine myself just playing devil's advocate for any proposal that comes in for delegate incentives and saying why it won't work. But the reality is, I think it's much better if we come up with a very simple and low standard proposal. We get that out and we start actually seeing it in action, right? We don't really, the answer is we don't know how delegates are going to respond. Oops. And we want to have some data. Right now, we're just moving on. So I think we should just have very low standards to begin with, and like simple ways of basically, like, an approach that comes to mind was similar to how mission proposals work, right? So let's say you have the delegates incentives in place, you have the delegates that are going to be getting incentives, and at the end of the month they report their activity, right? And then everybody from the delegates that are incentivized can go around the different reports and give kind of like sort of an approval to like another delegate that, hey, like what they did is actually something that I consider worthy contribution to the DAO, and I give them their approval. And if you get 3 approvals, you basically receive your incentive. So it kind of like introduces the concept of social curation to the whole aspect of delegate incentives. It's not just maths and a formula, which cannot account everything, but it is like it has a social aspect to it, which has subjectivity, which helps with like the qualitative aspect of it.
Sounds interesting. Yeah. So sorry. So basically, what you mentioned is having some sort of like peer review from other delegates. Like you get three approvals from other delegates.
Yeah, something like that. Not strictly like 3 or but something along those lines.
Arbitrary number. Yeah. Yeah, that's interesting.
Yeah, go ahead. Sorry.
Yeah, this is Bear from Bangladesh. I just want to touch base there actually. There are delegates who might be like super active in governance of other DAOs, for example, Aave, right? And who may not be that much active or do not have enough voting power in Arbitrum. I think Karma actually has a nice tool where you can actually cross-reference or cross-track these kind of governance established social capital. Maybe we should be taking that as an interesting criteria for this tier, so that we actually have the social capital to back these tiers or the delegates over there, and also the others know that these are like real champs.
Hmm. Yeah, I hadn't considered that. That's something definitely worth looking into.
But how does activity in another DAO translate to contributions to Arbitrum?
Yeah, it doesn't necessarily. That's why we also want to make this kind of like our weights. They would just like reset every month, except for the participation rate, because I do think like we want to compensate active participation, right? In the DAO.
Yeah, I mean, there are two
So
different types of people, right? There are professional delegates and there are hobby guys who are just coming and then being active in the forum. What I think we should be incentivizing is actually professional delegates coming to Arbitrium and contributing so that we have quality participation over here. So where the professional delegates are right now is where they are incentivized to be. So it is kind of like should be like a metric where we should be tracking where the quality people are and attracting them, I think.
I agree to a certain extent. I think it's very important to first of all compensate. Like I think that's the tricky part of using the word incentive, because it can be interpreted in different ways. Like, what are you trying to incentivize? I think with this specific program, like more than an incentive is to compensate those that are already actively contributing to the DAO. But at the same time, it should incentivize others to come from other DAOs to contribute to Arbitrum. And I think Sync, as we discussed this a couple of weeks ago, and yeah, that's how I see it, I think. But again, like I do think we should address both. On one hand, compensating current delegates, but I do think that it makes sense also to try to bring capital, like human capital, from other DAOs into our ecosystem. But I think it might go a bit beyond the scope of having an incentive system for delegates. I don't know.
Yeah, I mean, we definitely want to attract talent from other DAOs or like the broader ecosystem. But in like at the end of the day, we want to compensate active contributors, right? If we attract somebody and does work for a day and then doesn't care, then he shouldn't be compensated, right? Or he should, but only to the extent of his contribution. So yeah, while we do want to attract, that's the incentive part, right? Oh, delegates on Arbitrum are getting paid for their work. That's an incentive for somebody to come to Arbitrum. But if they work, it's a compensation, right? We should say for what it is. Like for people who are already working on Arbitrum and already contributing, it's a compensation, not an incentive, because they're already doing it. They have the incentives already. They are aligned. But for people outside of Arbitrum, it is an incentive of, all right, if I contribute here, I will get paid. Or, if I meet the criteria and contribute, that is. But yeah, I think like it goes back to what I was saying earlier about like big delegates weighing their votes. Like if you want to contribute and you only have, you don't have delegate power at all, or you only have very little, then you should contribute in the scope of maybe grants or something like issue proposal down the line if we are to introduce something similar. Because like delegate incentives, at least for the time being, and only for the top 30, which we think is like a good like amount of delegates incentivized, at least for experimental program.
Just to clarify something, like it would be top 30, but like top 10 within each. So it would be like the top 10 within each tier based on their score, not the top 10 by voting power. Just wanted to make that clear. Yeah. Just to align a bit.
I was good point, but I was referring to like the total number, not just the top 30.
Yeah. But yeah, I think I don't know if anybody else also like from our delegation wants to add anything up that I might have forgotten. But yeah, there's obviously a lot of things we've been going round and round about an incentive system. And again, I know I've said a lot, but that's why we tried to keep it simple, because we want to see this as something that evolves, something that we experiment with. And I do agree that having a milestone, have an evaluation halfway through makes a lot of sense. So in that way, we can maybe fix some of the parameters, change them, obviously with consensus about it.
Mhm.
If we feel like it's not working, it's not achieving, and have an evaluation, see like, are we actually incentivizing something? I think that's very important.
Yeah, it helps us not commit to something that we might see that it doesn't work.
Yeah,
basically.
let's be open-minded. Yeah, but yeah, basically that.
So yeah, overall that was our feedback. Like it's like we did have like specific things on the proposal itself, but we were mostly concerned with the general approach. And as I said, it's not like if we sit and try to find the perfect approach, we'll just do nothing. But at the same time, like we want to find, as you said, like iterative, right? Start small and start simple, and then as we go, see what the problems are or see what we might have missed or with what we can improve, and just do it along the way, as opposed to trying to find the perfect solution from the get-go.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, 100%. I think like especially like Arbitrum as a DAO, like we're at a stage where we can experiment, but we should be experimenting with. So we have. But yeah, I don't know if anybody else has anything to add or wants to ask anything. If not, you can always like reach out to me through Telegram or any other means. But yeah. Also,
Well,
obviously, feel free to comment on the forum, as always.
Yeah, that's the
Also
last thing I
for-
wanted to say, is that we're also gonna share the feedback on the forums probably for everybody to be able to
Yeah,
see it.
thanks a lot. Thanks a lot. It's awesome.
Yeah, absolutely.
But yeah. So sorry, Manu, were you saying something? I don't know if you wanted to add something.
Hey, no, I want to try to say to the community if they have some question about the proposal in Spanish, to make it in Spanish, and we will translate it to discuss everything in English. So let me say it to the guys. Chicos, si alguno de ustedes, aquellos que estén leyendo la proposal, tienen alguna pregunta acerca de ella, siéntanse libres de preguntar y les estaremos respondiendo. Los que hablamos español acá.
Gracias. Sí, perfecto. But yeah. Yeah, on my end, I don't have anything else to add, I think. Obviously, first of all, thank you everybody for being here. Muchas gracias a todos los que están acá. This proposal has been like a collaborative effort of the whole team, and we've been also very lucky to have Karma to help us out with this like option 2 for our proposal as well. So it's been pretty cool working on this, and thanks everybody for just like being here for the feedback. And yeah, I think that's pretty much it from my end. But yeah, I don't know if anybody I'm gonna just speak Spanish one second. Si alguien de la comunidad que quiere comentar algo, siéntase libre. Si no, como siempre, pueden escribir, pueden comentar, sea a través del Discord o escribir en el foro, o bueno, escribirnos directamente si tienen un comentario que agregar, si les interesa el tema. De todos modos, vamos a tener un call más adelante para conversar fácil más a profundidad entre nosotros. Yeah, I think we can wrap it up there if nobody else has anything to say. Again, thanks everybody for being here. We're really looking forward to any other feedback that we might get, either through forum or any other means. Okay.
Thanks for hosting, Kevin. And as I said, we'll also publish our feedback as LTB on the forums, and hopefully we can help on that end, like on tweaking the proposal or making any changes based on the feedback, both from us, but also from like the broader community, if any. I think Jenga Jojo had some feedback as well on the forums. And we'll be hosting as LTB the office hours, so you're also welcome there to continue the discussion. Christoph will be present as well, so he can chip in from his view. So yeah, you can hit us on Telegram as well to arrange a different call if that doesn't work. And yeah, we're really looking forward to helping you guys push this forward. We definitely need more people like you working on actual contributions, right? So thanks
Thank you so
again for
much.
leading this.
Thank you so
No,
much.
thanks to you for coming here and discuss with us and all of guys
Absolutely.
that came outside.
See you later then. See you. I think your office hours this Thursday, right?
Yes, it's this Thursday, 2 p.m. UTC or
Yeah, perfect.
yeah, 2
No, it
p.m.
works for
UTC.
me. I'm just back in Spain now, so it works perfect for me.
Okay, perfect.
Yeah. See you guys then. Take care.
All right, see you guys.
Thank you so much to everybody to come here to this call. Gracias a todos,
Sí.
chicos.
Muchas gracias a todos. Ya nos estamos
Bye
viendo.
bye. See you.